Hello people, welcome back. Today I want to write a little library that will allow us to write HTTP clients and servers. And we're going to do this in Common Lisp and specifically in SBCL or Steel Bank Common Lisp. That's the Lisp I use the most often. So in order to write an HTTP server, we have to understand the HTTP protocol, which stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And the one that we're going to be implementing today is version 1.1. Now, there are later versions, but this one is nice and simple, and it doesn't include the TLS specification for security. So this will allow us to create a nice little library for maybe local use, so we can serve local applications, local pages, and content. So to understand the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, we need to understand the message format. And so if we look over here on the right-hand side, there's this message format. If we click that, it takes us down and it tells us all about the message format. And so an HTTP message has a start line, it has some optional header fields, and it has a CRLF, which is a carriage return line feed, and then an optional message body. So if we look down here to the start line, click here. Oh, yeah, here, start line. An HTTP message. The start line is either a request line or a status line. So you can see that the request line has a method, request target, HTTP version, and then the CRLF. And a status line has an HTTP version, space, status code, reason phrase, and a CRLF. So that's pretty easy. And we'll go into like what a header field is when we get to it. But let's start off by making our project and then create some functions that will allow us to read and write these messages, these HTTP messages. And by the way, this is actually great. HTTP is a text-based protocol. So all of these things, we don't have to do any binary parsing. All we can use just string manipulation, and that will give us at least most of what we need for our HTTP messages. So let's go ahead and create a message. So let's see. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's HTTP version. Let's move this back up and go back to the message format, which will give us a line. Okay, so back to here. As I said, I'm using SBCL. And I will also be using QuickLisp, which is a package manager that allows us to download packages from a repository. And so what we'll do is we'll do quick load. I've already loaded Quick Project in here. So Quick Project is a package that allows us to create a package for ourselves, right? So it allows us to create the directory structure and kind of fill out some files for us, some boilerplate. So what we're going to do is we're going to do Quick Project, and we're going to make a project. And if we look down at the bottom here, it has the function signature for make project, which will allow us to remember what we're supposed to do. So we're going to have Quick Lisp, local projects, and we're going to call this Tiny Lisp, or Tiny Net is what we're going to do. And then we can have some keyword parameters, and we can add dependencies here, which at the moment I don't have any dependencies to add, but we can put author, and we'll say Philip Bowen, and we can put license, say BSD, and then we'll give it a name, which will be TinyNet. And then that's all that we need. And now we've created our project TinyNet, we can start opening it up. So we'll go over here and we'll open the file, QuickLisp local projects, TinyNet, tinynet.lisp, and this is the file for our TinyNet project. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're only going to be using HTTP 1.1. So that's exactly what we're going to define here at the top. We're going to have def parameter. And this will ultimately be a constant, but since we're going to be reloading the package over and over again, we're going to make it a parameter and use constant notation. So this is going to be HTTP version, and it's going to be HTTP /1.1. All right, so we'll put a note in here, to do actually, whoops, change to def constant when done. All right, def, and I misspelled parameter. There we go. Def, whoops, parameter. There we go. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write a couple functions that will allow us to both read and write these messages. So the first one we're going to do is we're going to actually write messages. So we're going to have make HTTP message. And what it's going to do is it's going to have the pieces of this message, which means we need to be able to fill in this start line. So let's go down here to the start line, and it will have a request line. So request line has method, request target, HTTP version. So make HTTP, actually let's make HTTP request. So it's going to have a method, request target, we already have the HTTP version as a constant. Then we're going to have optionally headers, and then let's see what it says over here. So header fields, or we'll just call it headers, and then we will potentially have content. Right, so that's how we'll do that. And then what we'll do is we'll format all of this. We're going to make it into a string, and we're going to have the method space, the request target, HTTP version, CRLF, and then we're going to have headers, and then we're going to have potentially content. So that's a lot of things, but we will run them well. Okay, so we're going to have method. Oh, let's actually put this over here. Method request target HTTP version. Then we're going to have an OR, which is headers to string. And then we're going to do, either the headers will have some kind of string or we'll have an empty string. And then we're going to have content, content, or an empty string. That's what we're going to do. There we go. So now the other thing that we're going to do is if we want to, over on this right-hand side, we want to be able to load our project and then try out this function. So in order to load our project and run the function, we need to be able to make this, we need to export this function. So we need to export it, and the way that we're going to do that is we're going to open a file, which will be package.lisp, which is created for us when we created the project. And we're going to list all of our exports here. So we're going to say export, make HTTP request. We're going to save that. We're going to go back to our other file. And so now make HTTP request is exported. So we should be able to use Quick Lisp now to quick load TinyNet. And it loaded successfully. So now what happens is, now that we've loaded TinyNet, we've loaded the package. And so the package has a namespace, which is TinyNet. And now we have access to the functions that are exported from TinyNet, which happens to be make HTTP request. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a method, which is say get. We're going to have a request target, say index.html. And then we're not going to have headers, and we're not going to have content. So let's see how it creates that for us. Oh, the one thing that we forgot. We actually forgot something here. We forgot our CRLF. So we need to have, after this HTTP version, before our headers, all of this method, request target, and HTTP version is all on one line. So remember, this request line here has to end with a CRLF, and we had already created enough things here. So we're going to say, let's see, return. That will give us a carriage return, and a new line gives us a new line. So now we can actually load TinyNet again, which we've got. Okay. And now we can say TinyNet, make HTTP request, and now we can do all this stuff. Say get index.html, and then we're going to have nil nil. All right, so let's see what happens here. And we have an error. And so on the right-hand side here, Common Lisp has stopped, and it has told us that headers to string is not defined. So there's a function here that we haven't defined yet. We can actually go up here, and we'll just abort. And then we will define this function for ourselves, right? So let's create some utility functions. And we will just make this wide enough here. Oh, I need to turn on my... that's interesting. I need to turn on my character. How many characters are in the line? Anyway, let's create some utility functions. We'll define headers to string, and that will give us headers. And what we're going to do for right now is just return an empty string. So we'll implement this a little bit later, and in fact, we're going to write a little note to ourselves to do implement headers to string. Now we can load TinyNet again. So we've loaded TinyNet, and now we can try make HTTP request. And so now it gave us an HTTP request, which is exactly what we're looking for. We have a get, and it gives us an index.html, HTTP version, and a CRLF. And of course, that creates a new line. So let's try this one more time, but let's give it a headers. Oh, actually, we can't do headers yet. We have to implement headers. So let's create an implementation of headers where what we're going to do is the headers is actually going to be a list of, and actually an association list, right? So an association list, let's actually go to Common Lisp Cookbook, and let's go to data structures and a list, I believe. Okay, so an a list is an association list, right? So an association list is basically a list of cons cells, right? So a cons cell has a first part, and then importantly here is this dot and a last part. So instead of being a proper list where you have things appended onto each other with a null at the end, we don't have a null at the end, we actually have a value at the end. So that's what an association list is, and you can set stuff and get things from it. So we're going to have an association list, and we're going to turn that into a single string that we're going to return. So we're going to have a single string with new lines in it, and so we're going to go through all of these things. And so we're going to say we're going to map car. So we're going to map a function over each one of these headers, right? And so we're going to say map car, and we're going to have a function which is lambda. This will be a header, and then we will convert header to string for h. All right, so then we'll have headers. Oh, whoops. There we go. So, okay, so we'll map car, which will map this function across every entity headers, right? Now, we also need to have a function which will be header to string, which will take a single header and then convert it to a string. So what we'll do is we'll format nil, and we will have the first part, the second part, and then we'll have a CRLF, right? So we're going to say car header, a cutter of header, and then we'll have a CRLF, which will be return new line. There. So now we've implemented our headers to string, which now we should be able to load TinyNet again. All right, no errors so far. And we should be able to, instead of having nils for these, we could actually have a header. So we're going to have a header where we're going to say content type, and it's going to be dot. The content type is text plain, and then we're also going to have, let's see. Whoops. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. So content type text plain. There we go. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to have a content length, which is going to be the length of our particular, we have to have a header saying the length of our content. So we're going to just say hello, which will be HELLO, which is 5. So we're going to say our content length is 5. Actually, that's just going to be a string. Actually, we'll just make it a number, so that way we can have numbers. And then that's the end of our headers. And now we can have content, right? And so the content will actually just be hello, the string hello. So now it should actually generate this for us, right? So we got an error over here, and it says CD is undefined. That's interesting. I don't remember typing CD. So let's go ahead and do this. Oh, yeah. Car header, right? Or cutter header. There we go. So now if we quick load TinyNet and then try this again, we can see that we've got this first line. And this was all created as a single string, right? So, so the string has a bunch of new lines in it. Has get this. Oh, I guess we shouldn't be doing a get with content, right? So if we wanted to make this a little bit more official, we can have post, and let's post. Okay, so now we have post, and we're posting to index.html, which is interesting. We have HTTP version, and of course the new line, CRLF, and then we've got a particular content type. Oh, whoops. Okay, so we do have something here that is incorrect. So we're actually we created a string, but we have a list of string, which is what we do not want. So this map car will actually map something onto a list. And then what we want to do is we want to join that list, right? So we want to join these strings together into a single string. And so we'll actually do that with format. And the way that we'll do that is format in Common Lisp has some really amazing stuff from it. So it allows us to actually iterate through a list and do some amazing things. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our list. We're going to have a string, and then of course iterate through that list. And that will allow us to turn this into a single string. Then boom. All right, so I think this is okay. Let's load TinyNet, and we've got an error here, but value of cutter in format. Let's see, map car, or not an or string function. Wait, what does it mean? Okay, so format car. Let's see, map car, which will go through each header, through headers, and it will turn that header into a single string, right? So it will create a list of these things. And then what we're going to do is, oh, map. Yeah, so then we want to print that list. Oh, format nil. Okay. knew I was missing something. So we'll load this, and then we'll run, and now here we've got it. So now we've got our post index, we've got a version, we've got a new line, content type, text plain, content type length, 5, and then we've got our content itself. And I think, what did it say over here? Okay, request line. Okay, actually start message body. So CRLF. Oh, there needs to be a CRLF after the last header field, right? So after the last header field, headers. So after the last headers, there needs to be a CRLF, right? And no matter what. So we'll do that. Return new line. And we'll add a couple more of these. Now, we should be able to load this again. TinyNet. And now we have a CRLF that tells us. Now, what this does is the reason why the format has this is they want to be able to tell when they're done with the headers, right? So by having an empty line, that says that, okay, all the headers are done. Anything that comes after will be content. So there we go. So I think we've actually spent more than enough time for a YouTube video. So I think we'll leave it here today. And next time we'll start looking at reading or parsing an HTTP request. And till next time.